So, we're calling the meeting to order. Did everybody, oh, we can't vote on the meeting minutes either. So, I'm assuming everybody did receive the minutes and was able to review them, but we're going to have to pass on voting on those minutes for right now. Um, Liaison updates. Robert Clee is not present. Tim is not able to join us today. So, Sheila, if you'd like to give an update on the Board of Selectmen.
Sure. We had our regular monthly meeting, and there was one item that came up that I was asked to please convey back to Cupop regarding the previous meeting, where there was a vote regarding the items that were on the Board of Selectmen's agenda for our special meeting, which was um, had to do with the November election. So it was brought up at the Board of Selectmen meeting, and I conveying to you that there's some thinking to say that it should have been formally added to the agenda before the vote was conducted. So I think that, since it was a regular meeting, and this is also a regular meeting, although you don't have a quorum, so you can't add things to this agenda. Typically, if you want to discuss something that's not on the posted agenda, a 2/3 vote of the members to add to the agenda can take place first, then you can proceed with discussion, motions, etc. So just conveying that back to you all, and um, so that for future reference. Um, so other than that, I think that there was some discussion regarding the land use designations, and I know that Tim Austin was going to be going back to Conservation Commission, and he had indicated that Cupop had already weighed in on it, and that will be brought. My understanding is will be brought forward to the Board of Selectmen for future consideration. I don't know if it'll happen at our December meeting or a January meeting, so I just want to flag that for you all to know. And other than that, there's not really anything else happening that is in particular for Coupop, but if you have any items you want me to bring back, of course, the big topic that the Board of Selectmen is about to wade in on is the budget setting for next year. And as Beth Heller has been saying to everyone who will listen, we're urging people to be involved in budget presentations as they happen. So we start in the first week of December on, I believe, the 2nd, and then again on the 6th to consider capital budgets. We'll have some presentations. I don't think Coupop doesn't typically have any kind of budget lines for that. And then later in January, towards the beginning of February, we'll have a series of meetings about the operating budget. But that's the opportunity for people in town to kind of weigh in on how we're going about setting the budget for next fiscal year, which will begin July 1. So it's almost a year-round process, but that's what the Board of Selectmen will be focused on next. So that's the liaison report.
Sheila, if you don't mind me asking, was there any decision made as to um, whether or not the proposal on the Woodbridge Country Club will be tabled until a report is forthcoming from the Housing Committee?
Yeah, actually, to close the loop, because the last time Coupop met, you had asked me to bring back the your resolution that said, please, Board of Selectmen, please consider holding off until the housing needs survey and the work of the housing committee was completed. We thought that would be May, June or so. I did relay that. We did ultimately vote at that special meeting. We were considering not that larger proposal for the whole of the property, but we were considering whether we would send out an RFP for a smaller piece, including the clubhouse. So we did end up at that meeting voting to table that discussion. In part, I think that the motion from Coupop to, requesting us to wait for the housing study, I think the housing study is of general interest across the board. So whether it's to do with specific proposal that's gone around to the different boards and commissions, or any new proposal. Right now, we're sort of in a paused state. I'm not actually sure when we would hear back for that larger proposal. I think that they may still be visiting boards and commissions or wrapping that up. And so I don't actually know anything specific about when it might come back to the Board of Selectmen, but it has not yet.
Great, thank you, Sheila. Does
Mhm.
anybody have any questions?
Nicole,
Yes.
only because Sheila is our liaison, should we bring up the topic that I had asked you about? I know it's on,
I'm gonna bring it up in a moment. It's underneath my report. So I do have information
okay,
about that.
we need you, Sheila.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, so about the Housing Opportunity Study Committee update, I hope that everyone on this commission has seen the advertisement for December 6th at the JCC. We will be having a meeting then. It's an informational meeting where David Fink from SCROG will be providing information about what affordable housing really is and what it entails. It is the same presentation that he gave to the Board of Selectmen as well as the other commissions within the town. It's very informative, and hopefully that'll one of our main obstacles obviously is defining what affordable housing is and trying to rid ourselves of misnomers regarding that phrase, affordable housing. So that will be taking place on December 6th. It was rescheduled because of the budget meeting, right, Sheila? That was going to be taking place that week. So we did not want to coincide with that meeting. We wanted, I know a lot of people are interested in budget as they are with this issue. So we did change that date. It has been given to Betsy to publish. I know that it is going to be in the newspaper if it isn't already. Haven't checked my mail. And also on the A-frames throughout town at all the various intersections that we normally see all of the announcements. It's also going to be posted in a lot of town buildings and businesses throughout the town because it is obviously important for all of the members of our community to be involved in what we want housing to look like within Woodbridge and what we need. So that is my update about the study committee. I do not have an update on the percentage of residents that participated in the first survey. We have been asking SCROG for that information, but I do not have it at this moment. And I believe that's it on housing. Does anybody have any questions about the housing committee?
Can I just interject? We were discussing about quorum. So I actually just looked this up because we did have this issue about quorum, and for a 6-member commission, 3 is a quorum for passing
Oh,
votes.
great. Okay. All right.
That's according to the town clerk back in 2014. So I found an old email. So I will forward that for you guys. And so my guess is you can do some votes tonight. If it turns out that something has changed, you could always go back and redo those votes. But it looks like you should be able to take votes tonight.
Great. Thank you,
Because
Sheila.
you're 3.
Before let me just finish up with, well, actually, if I may just circle back for one quick second, then before I go on to the littering issue that Leslie just brought up, because that's going to involve some discussion. But I just wanted to go back to item number 2. And as I indicated, if everyone was able to review the minutes from our October meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone want to move to have those minutes adopted?
I'll make a move.
Okay, Patty.
Yes.
Second, Leslie.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, all. So going back to my chairman report, I did receive an email from our member Leslie regarding littering. Now, Leslie, I'll let you describe what's occurring. I did follow up on that issue, and I wanted you to know, and I don't know if you're aware of this, and of course, this doesn't preclude us from discussing it further as to, creating our own town ordinance. However, there is a state statute, I don't know if you're aware of that, that specifically indicates the type of activity that is occurring does violate this statute. And that statute would cover the town of Woodbridge. So I don't know, I could give it to you at section 22A-250 so that the Woodbridge Police Department can be involved, and their authority would be found within that statute for what's occurring. It's on, you obviously are privately owned property. That's where you fall in here. Of course, the statute is very lengthy in discussing dumping, but that's not your situation. I know your situation involves the items and plastic. So if you want to describe what's happening,
Mhm.
and then we can go from there.
Okay, and the reason I mentioned it and decided that it should be an issue for Cupop as well is because it doesn't have to just pertain to private property.
Right.
All the state has some statutes, and we did find some things at City Hall. There was very little, but it was with regard Woodbridge's ordinances was with regard to mostly wetlands and areas where there was a concern about pollution of water, and that is important, of course. But it didn't extend to more public property, and that would include our streets, our parks, and trails, etc. The reason that I got hell bent on the idea is because we had been, and I'm sure this happens to some of you too. Apparently, it's only select streets though. We're bombarded by mailers that come in plastic bags that look like newspapers in disguise, and it's all junk. And for the most part, if you drive by a lot of streets, including mine, people don't pick them up. They don't even care. I mean, it's like, stop already. And this is through the Connecticut Post, and I had called them 6 times, supposedly was going up and up the chain to ask them to please stop. And they occur on Wednesdays between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock in the morning every other week. But our street was starting to look like trash, and people do keep their properties up. It's just that these were just inordinate because they're also in brightly colored packages, so you can see them. We got sick of having them in the middle of our driveway, having people run over them. Anyway, I was promised 6 times. I got the police involved, and this is where the big issue comes in. The police had called them 2 times and told them that it constitutes littering, and we were promised that they would in fact stop. Well, the one that came last, and this is from last spring, the one that came last week is still here. I've been piling them up. The police gave me a suggestion of what to do with them with regard to returning them to them, but that's a whole other thing. I went through what I could see, and it includes what the state has. And you're right, it's a huge, long issue, but it doesn't really protect the streets as much either, because apparently certain designated areas, whether they're private or public, are not monitored. That's the best way of saying it. And so the burden of proof would have to be proving that these things occurred. All right. That's one thing. Um, the other thing is that I went on the state list of towns that do have ordinances, and it said if anything's in error, let us know. And it looks like almost every does, but they really don't. Um, so it does say that we have one, but again, that's that small one that pertains to the wetlands. Um, what I also out was that there are certain towns that do in fact have some pretty intensive ones that have been developed, and it was suggested that I look at the one from Newtown, Connecticut. I do have the link, and I do have copies of, well, made my own copy of what it looks like, and then they're pretty intense. The idea is, if it's not reinforced, and if we don't actually set fines and some sort of penalties, nothing will happen. I went one step further this weekend. I installed a camera. And the camera will show when these people deliver it to my unfortunate driveway. So I will have, proof on that end. But I thought there should be something to protect things other than my driveway, obviously. And that's why I thought Cupop should be involved. Because as well as I do, that when you drive down streets, if there's one piece of litter, in 5 minutes there's 10. And having trolled the streets now I'm the garbage girl of Greenway Road, and I've been doing this for over 30 years, and our neighbors know it, and some have pitched in, but you really have to patrol things. So that said, I thought it might be a good idea to at least explore a Woodbridge specific public property ordinance that possibly would involve fines and penalties if if they were if people were caught. I have to say that, and if we found any infractions thereof. So that was my proposal. What do you think?
So I just wanted to again, I mean, and I think this, I'll leave it up to the committee to decide what you want to do. I'm fine either way. Um, I don't know, Leslie. I will forward you the statute just so you know, but it does specifically apply to public property in the state, any public land in the state, any private property in the state, not owned by the person that's obviously littering, or and then it starts listing any of the waters in the state and gets in specifically, everything else there. And then there is a fine attached to littering. Like you said, the problem is you have to show, right? Who's doing the littering. So, certainly you're right. I looked into various towns within the state of Connecticut, and there are many, many littering ordinances for specific towns, in addition to the state statute that's here. Certainly, Woodbridge has created ordinances, even though there's been state statute that also protect a specific situation. For example, dogs on leashes. I understand that that's not a requirement throughout the state, but it is in the town of Woodbridge. So certainly, if there's anything different than what's in this statute that we want to utilize to protect the town, that may be something that we may want to explore after reading the statute and saying, I mean, it's obviously within our right to do that, but as a town, Sheila, what do you think that the Board of Selectmen position is on this?
Yeah, so we do have an ordinance subcommittee of the Board of Selectmen, and I'm a member of that committee. I think that I'm just looking up Newtown's ordinance, and it's similar. It's found in the same area of the code where ours would be if we had one. I'm particularly interested in the enforcement piece because I know when we talked about blighted premises in the past, one of the issues here is it does have to be enforced, and that's a staff person, and that's somebody's time. So there's always a cost involved, and when you create new pieces of ordinance, you then need to enforce it, and then you need to pay to have someone enforcing it. So I would say that it's certainly something that could be brought to the Board of Selectmen. There could be a request that we, as the ordinance committee, look into it. I think it's going to hinge on enforcement. Of course, I think we should all be concerned about litter in the environment. So this is probably a good topic for Cupop to, forward to the Board of Selectmen. But other than that, if the ordinance committee were to take it up, you could certainly come to the ordinance committee with your recommendations or text or anything else that you'd like to suggest. But then you would sort of let it go to the ordinance committee and let the ordinance committee do its work. Ultimately, in order to create an ordinance, we have to have a public hearing. And then we would hear from everybody, including yourselves, if you'd like to continue advocating as a group. So that's my advice. If you want to pursue it, perhaps make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
Just one question. In your view, do you think that in terms of enforcement, would not the police be part of that? And they're already hired, so I don't know about appointing another specific person to.
Yeah. So, for example, in the Newtown one, the police are not mentioned there. It's a special constable and enforcement officers, and then there's a form for citizens who want to report littering. And that's done by the town clerk. So this is sort of all the different departments that might be involved. Health or building inspector could also do enforcement. We have a blight officer now. We actually received a report from the blight officer at our last Board of Selectmen meeting, and he talked about some of the work he's been doing, which is, great work. Could he take on this kind of litter patrol as well? I'm not sure.
Well, as it stands now, the enforcement is either an environmental, an EPA officer or some kind of state officer in that regard, or in the alternative, it is the local police department as it stands now because it's a state statute. Um, and then it breaks it down further, right? It indicates that, when a fine is paid, and if it's a town municipal police officer, then we get half of the money, and then the other half goes to the state. And then if it's an EPA, it goes half and half. So, they do break that down in great detail. But as of now, the enforcement would be the Woodbridge Police Department, unless it happened to be on one of our state maintained properties that run through the town, and then it could be the EPA. So,
Mhm. So just so I'm sure I understand, the original concern, Leslie, is somebody is actually trying to deliver to your house something that
They're not
is just
trying.
being tossed on the ground?
They're tossing it on our property. And it's not just me. I actually, again, I swear I'm going back to work soon, but I did have some time on my hands this past week. And Wednesday, I set myself up to see if, it was coming. And I probably missed them by 5 minutes, but it was there, and tried to see what other streets. Some streets weren't. One half of one street, they were Baldwin, one half got them, the other half didn't. I mean, I don't know how they designate it, but they are, and again, that's private property, but they end up in the streets. They end up,
But it's one specific company that's doing it?
yes, the Connecticut Post.
is it an advertisement? Is it an advertisement?
Oh no, it's not just one. Haven't you ever gotten those big, thick,
Yeah.
things filled with, sometimes envelopes, but filled with advertisements and whatever?
Yeah.
Well, now, I mean, they're thick and they're big, and again, they put them in plastic bags, making them look like newspapers.
Mhm.
Corporation, and it's the Connecticut Post. They're located in Norwalk. I mean, I know where the office is, etc. And I
Right.
won't say police told me to do with them, because I don't know if I'm going to go through with it. But let's just say they said I should return them. They didn't say in what condition, but anyway. And I'm considering that. I've been collecting them now for months. So if you drive down some streets and you see something that looks like plastic bags that are, that might have dead fish in them or whatever, it's usually those. So it's creating a problem that way. But it's the idea too, of course, that they're throwing things on our property. um I know, again, that Cupop scope really is for public use, but the ordinance, would help the entire town. I don't know if you guys are finding these things being thrown, but it's been going on and on. Our neighbors are sick of it. One of my neighbors has 5 of them in her driveway now. So, and she's not dirty, so she's just furious. But uh, I thought we should have a more specific one. The police did say that if, in fact, and they had said that they had gone to court for these things,
Mhm.
and the fact that happened, we'd have to have proof. And they suggested having the camera and having a video. So, that was it. In terms of the public, um, I don't want to call it the public posse, but um, the public being able to monitor it. I know the cost of cameras would, of course, not be able to be done right now, I'm sure, although it wasn't that expensive. But anyway, I'm thinking too about like the dog park and, that area, Fitzgerald Tract. I mean, sometimes it's pretty overwhelming what goes over there. Um, you know,
So
it was a thought. It was
I
the
have a quick
thoughts.
question. Is it considered littering because it's being thrown on the property, or is it like, you get junk mail in your mailbox and that's
Mm.
allowed? So the difference here is it's being just tossed out onto the ground, not into
Right.
your mailbox. And
Yes,
that's and that's legal? That's
no.
my question. It isn't. So that's
The
really
pub-
the issue that you have to fight it,
right.
because they
I
can
mean,
solicit, but they just can't throw it on your front yard.
right. And I mean, you could take your garbage from the night before and throw it on my lawn too. I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Of course, it's all in the eye of the beholder, but I consider it junk. And littering would constitute having things thrown on your property, especially if you've been warned as many times. So I don't know specifically how many times, but the police thought it was twice.
Mhm.
So, and they're totally ignoring the police requests.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all get them in the little yellow bags, and I just pick them up and throw them away. But that's the
Well,
difference. They're not
yeah.
putting it in your mailbox so that you have any control over it. It's just littering your property.
Well, I also have a report. I mean, I'll forward this to everyone if you want to start looking at it. But, you look at the legislative reports they have before the statute was updated. And I say updated, I think the last where when it was written was 2011. But back in 2008, and I'm sure it's changed since then, but the state of Connecticut, when they were going through all the statutes, actually wrote a report on the penalties for littering in all of our neighboring states. And it's much higher than Connecticut. So, I mean, that's something, obviously, just if you're interested in looking at that. But I think looking at other town ordinances and how they um, utilize the state statute and what they add in addition to would be very interesting to see how what they're doing to protect it. As Sheila said, I mean, that's the issue, right? Who's going to be monitoring this other than the police? And as Sheila indicated, Newtown isn't utilizing the police, although technically you still can because it's still a violation of the state statute, right? But if we are going to enact our own fines and penalties underneath our ordinance for the town, then we go back to Sheila's point, which is who's going to monitor this, and is it going to be the blight officer, and so on and so forth. So, if we're interested in looking at it, I mean, we could certainly make if someone wants to make a motion to investigate potential littering ordinance.
Can I make a suggestion for you that I think bring it to the Board of Selectmen, because if you guys do a lot of work investigating ordinance, but then the Board of Selectmen decides not to send it to the ordinance committee, then you've done it for nothing. So why don't you start with asking if the Board of Selectmen would consider it? I don't know, and it could be that the police would come and also speak to, how they view it as a problem, et cetera. So why don't we start with that before you do a lot more research? Because it sounds like you've got some basic ideas that you could bring forward to the selectmen. So just a suggestion so that you don't go too far into it without getting it to the selectmen.
How do you suggest we do that, Sheila? Should I write an email on behalf of Cupop to the
Sure.
Board of Selectmen? Is that the best way to do it?
Yeah, I think so. Ask for their consideration, and then, you may get the green light there, and then that would be great. But let's start with that, because it has to go through the ordinance committee and get back to the Board of Selectmen. So we've got many months of back and forth with it, and like I said, there has to be a public hearing. So
Okay.
yeah, maybe start with the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. All right. Great. I just buried my agenda underneath the statue here. Okay. So the next order of business is the meeting schedule, which was also attached to the meeting email. Did everybody look at the schedule for 22? Everybody have it? Any discussion on any of the dates? Or would someone like to move to adopt that as our schedule for 2022?
Yeah, this looks good. The only thing that we usually end up not meeting in the summer because of vacations, but we usually don't make that decision until we
So
get
we get
closer.
close. Mhm.
Yeah. That's it. Otherwise,
And-
it's fine.
We could certainly look at that as we get closer, like you said, Patty, to the summer. Okay. So does anyone want to move to adopt the schedule?
Excuse me, Nicole, I just want to mention, this is Tony, I just want
Hey,
to
Tony.
mention about the December 26th date. So that's a date that's closed. So either you wouldn't have a meeting that day, or you might want to change it to a different date in December. So that when you move motion, can motion to figure that out as well, whoever motions on that.
Okay. Thank you, Tony.
Welcome.
So would someone like to make the motion as articulated by Tony regarding the December date?
I'll make the motion. That's fine. I was waiting for Leslie.
Okay, so we're gonna make
Oh,
the motion. that we-
Parties I'll
That's
second it.
okay.
So we're gonna make the motion to adopt the schedule with the caveat that we will discuss the December 26th date as we get closer. Because the offices are closed in town. Is that the motion? Made by
Yes.
Patty? Okay.
Yes.
And it's seconded by Leslie,
Yes,
right? All in favor?
aye.
Okay, unanimous, great. We are scheduled to have a meeting on Monday, December 27th. We typically do not meet in December because of the holidays anyway. I don't know if you want to discuss what you'd like to do in December. Leslie, Patty?
I prefer not having it that week. It's vacation week for myself, and I think a lot of us. I
Mhm.
think Laura travels a little bit, and as I recall, it was a pretty quiet week, a no-show week, traditionally.
Okay. So someone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion
Okay.
in December.
Seconding it?
Oh, I'll second.
Nicole,
Okay.
sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. I think Laura is trying to reach us. She's a call-in right now, and she doesn't think she's being heard. Laura Ferranti.
Oh,
Laura?
Yes, hi.
Hi,
Hi.
Laura.
Can you hear
Laura,
me? Hi, everybody.
hi.
Hey,
Can you hear me?
I
Yep.
can hear you. Are you okay with the
Okay.
meeting schedule? Did you hear us about the meeting that December?
I missed, I joined for the last two items, but could you repeat those last two items if you don't mind?
Sure. So we just moved to adopt the schedule that Tony attached to the email for 2022 and decided that
Okay.
we will reschedule that December meeting. That's actually a holiday as we get closer.
Okay,
And the
I
second,
agree with that.
sorry, Laura.
I said I agree with that, so that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay. And then the second item was to not meet in December because it's the holiday week and school is off and it's kind of a crazy week for everyone. So are you okay with that?
Yes, I'm okay with that also. Yep.
Did we we did make a motion on that. Okay, that
What was the exact, I'm sorry, but I don't think there was an exact motion stated. So so if somebody just, I think if you wanted to state the motion, Leslie, I think you were partly saying something, but just if you could just say the whole motion.
the motion to not meet in December, that issue?
Not meet in
I
December.
think we make a motion to not have our meeting in December.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
okay.
And
Tony, you voted on
what was
that,
the
right?
vote? So who seconded that? That was Leslie.
And I seconded it.
Patty.
Okay. And then
Thank
let's
you.
do a roll
Patty.
call. Laura?
Oh, I'm in agreement.
Okay. And Nicole, you're in agreement.
I'm in agreement.
Thank you.
Okay, now moving along. We did receive the email from Beth that we can meet in person. As of now, although I just watched the news this evening, but as of the last email, we can. I want to hear what you guys think about meeting in person. I mean, it would be nice to meet in person again. If we are to meet in person,
May I make a comment, please? This
sure.
is Laura. Okay, so I just had a cousin. He was unvaccinated. He just passed away with COVID, 55 years old.
I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
And
Or
one of our Woodbridge residents, I'm not going to name the person, who has a son in college. He had his 2 vaccines scheduled to get his booster Wednesday. He just got it. So I would not recommend, in my opinion, I think we should continue meeting as we are because I don't feel comfortable coming in person.
I second that.
Sheila, did Beth? So she's still leaving it up to the various commissions. There wasn't any type of mandate, was there, in the email? I don't recall. There were a few emails about meeting.
Yeah. So currently, the reporting is not showing an uptick in Woodbridge specifically, but I will note for you that the New Haven County has gone up to high alert again. So yes, Beth is leaving it up to individual boards and commissions. There have been a couple of meetings already in person, everyone socially distant, wearing masks, etc.
Yeah.
But as the incidences are changing, you want to be very careful, of course.
I mean, I
Right,
would,
right.
we could probably address this in January. I assume that by January with the holidays, the uptick, as Sheila mentioned, that's what I was just listening to on the news, in our county. It is moving up. So certainly because we are not meeting in December, perhaps we can, reassess the situation in January, and hopefully we'll be cautiously optimistic that it does not go back into the red or orange zone.
Right. No, it's scary, but it seems like, if the West is going up, it's before, especially now with the holidays and people get there in close quarters. And I have to say that a lot of people aren't wearing masks. A lot of people are, going in stores, going out, and they're not wearing masks. So I'm just concerned, and I just don't think it is safe for our committee anyway. I can't make a decision for anybody else, but I think it's for our committee. I'm would like to make a motion that we not meet in person yet, and we
And-
can look
and-
at it and maybe or in February, and then make review it again.
So we can just table this until January. Well, we're not tabling it, but make your motion is to
Oh.
not meet in person for January and to reassess
Right.
in January whether we should meet in person in February.
Perfect. That sounds perfect.
Okay, anybody want to second that?
I'll
Second.
definitely.
Either one of
Leslie?
us.
Okay,
Oh, yeah. I didn't hear you. Sorry.
okay. All in favor?
I
Everyone? Okay, Laura, I can't see you, so that was an aye.
Yes.
Okay, it's your motion.
Yep.
All right, okay. Are there any updates, Laura, on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee?
I didn't attend the meeting, so I missed that meeting, and so I don't have anything to update you on at this point.
Okay.
I wasn't planning on this meeting either. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Life crazy. Patty.
Yeah.
How are you? So can you give
Right.
us
So
an update?
I had a meeting. I did a walkthrough with Betsy and the director of the library, and we walked the grounds and talked about the two projects on the table, which is the pavilion and a patio for some outdoor learning and functions and different things that the library hosts. And just talked about some locations. So I'm waiting for a little bit more information from Betsy, and then I'm going to just assist with some kind of photo montage design concept so they can kind of see what it might look like and do a little research on some of the acoustic issues with the street and traffic. So it's a
Great.
work
That
process.
sounds like yeah.
That'll be nice.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you, Patty. Leslie with the dog park. You have news for the dog park, I know.
Well, yeah, kind of. The Bonnie had told me that apparently they've had new elections. She was going to return the names of the new officers to me today, but didn't quite get to it. So I can't tell you who's running the dog park, but I can tell you most of the former officers have resigned, retired, or I don't know what else to say. They're not there. I'm not sure who our new contact would be. And I'm still waiting for her to let me know about that. But I had mentioned the idea about having a water facility established. That's still apparently a go. I'm trying to think if there's anything else new that she told me. Not really. They're still looking for donations and volunteers, of course. And basically, that's it. There's nothing else really new. If I know of anything further than that, like who's running it, I'll be happy to let somebody know.
I actually have the names of the people that won, if you want me to go through, who won the election.
Yeah,
I
go
don't
ahead.
think they have actual presidents, vice presidents. I think it's just a board. So, I do know some of the members here, so hopefully I can
Sure.
reach out to
Give it a-
somebody and get a connect for you, Leslie. So it's
Yeah.
Melissa Federico, Joseph Giulietti, Jeanette Glixman, Lawrence Grothier.
Huh.
I hope I'm pronouncing the names correctly. Um, Jessica Hoffman, Nicole Grass, Karen King, Jack Nork, Benjamin Silver, and John and Mary Beth Warmer. And actually, Mary
Oh,
Beth
good.
was the treasurer when I was vice president, so she's back on the board.
Huh.
So you don't know who the president is, or do you?
So I want to make sure I understand this correctly, but I don't know if they're having executive positions. I think that they just were creating a board without
Of
an
course.
executive board, but
Okay.
please don't, that's not the gospel here, but I think that's what I heard. So, but I could certainly, you'll hear from Bonnie, or I could reach out to somebody who's on the board that just was elected, and then I could find someone for you, Leslie, to chat with for our meetings, for our updates. Okay.
Yeah, or I could, maybe find out through Bonnie. I'll give her another day.
Yeah.
she's been pretty good about it.
Yeah. Okay,
Mhm.
great. So the number 9, our next meeting will be on Monday, January 24th, 2022. Are there any new items that we would like to add to the agenda for next meeting?
Can I just ask you one thing? Sorry to beat a dead horse, or anyway. So how did we leave the litter issue? I'm not sure. Is someone going to make a draft to send to the board? I mean, how are we doing this? Just an email?
Right. So I can send an email on behalf of Cupop, and of course, I can send it to all of you before I send it, indicating that this is an issue that we're hoping that the Board of Selectmen can look at. As Sheila had indicated, they do have an ordinance committee, and she had recommended that we not research everything yet until
Right.
we get a green light from the Board of Selectmen. So,
Right.
the email is the first step. So I can certainly author an email and send it to all the members here before I send it to the Board of Selectmen about the littering ordinance, and then we can wait to hear back from Sheila.
All right. I just, again, I emailed you to this effect. I didn't mean to put this on your plate,
No,
but
no, it's fine. It's fine. And again, Leslie, when you have the cameras, as the police department indicated,
Mhm.
hopefully you are able to find something on the camera and you can forward that. As of now, the Woodbridge Police Department do have the authority under the Connecticut General Statute to be the ones to handle a littering situation as it's written now. So,
And
hopefully
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
the camera works.
Handle what? I'm
Litter-
sorry, I didn't hear that.
potential of
Handle
littering,
what?
Littering.
littering reinforcement.
What?
I
What?
think
What the police do? So you take a picture of the trash.
no,
Uh,
of the
uh,
No,
person
no,
who-
no, no.
What do you take a picture of?
you have to catch them in the act. And I did put up a
Oh.
camera this weekend, so
Okay.
I'm going to do that at least. But that's public. That's private property. But at least I thought it was a start. Because I
Yes.
think the rules need to be stiffer here. Definitely. And again, if you look at new towns, they're pretty good. They're pretty good.
Yeah. No, it's getting really messy down. Even on my little street, I see people drive in and they throw their trash out.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But anyway.
All with the bags of leaves all over too. But that's
Yeah, try living on the street that connects the high school. The kids are driving down our street. So we've picked
Yeah,
up
we
a lot of
yeah.
garbage in the past.
Our-
Yeah.
so that doesn't help either. That's imported from Orange, but it ends up in Woodbridge. So
So are there any other
Yeah.
new items that we want to add? We'll keep littering on there. So maybe perhaps we'll have an update when we meet in January. Is there anything else that we want to put on that's new before we adjourn?
I can't think of anything.
All right, great.
I
We'll
motion
have-
that we.
Mhm.
I motion that we,
adjourn.
yes, I
Okay.
motion that we adjourn.
You were cutting out there. I was like, adjourn. Okay. Who wants to second it?
Oh, come on, Patty.
Oh, I was waiting for you. I was being polite, but I'll second it. Thank you.
Okay. Have a great, all in favor, everybody. Laura.
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Have a great Thanksgiving, great
Yeah.
holidays, everybody.
Thank you all. Good talking to you,
year.
and see you in January.
See you in
Okay, thank you,
January. Sheila.